This new Warhammer 40K trailer has just shown the one thing fans never expected to see. On the Golden Throne, where the Emperor of Mankind has sat frozen and silent for 10,000 years, his eyes begin to open. The man who has not moved since the dawn of the setting appears to be waking up, and the strangest part is that he may have set his own return in motion 10,000 years ago. The Emperor is the most powerful being humanity ever created, and for 10,000 years, he has also been the most helpless, a godlike mind kept alive by a machine he can never leave. The trailer suggests that is about to change, and it leaves the whole setting hanging on what his waking would mean for the galaxy, whether he's truly returning, what would happen next if he rose, and whether his return would save mankind or destroy it. Almost every line in that trailer is less a promise than a warning. To understand why his return is even possible, and why it frightens as many people as it comforts, the story has to begin long before he was ever placed on that seat. The Emperor was the strongest psyker the human race had ever produced, a man whose mind could shape raw energy on a scale no one has matched. Long before the throne existed, he had a plan for the entire species. He wanted to rebuild a webway, the ancient alien roads that run between the stars, so humanity could travel and speak across the galaxy without ever touching the warp. The warp is the ocean of raw, psychic energy where the dark gods live, and those gods grow stronger on human fear, faith, and feeling. By cutting his own people off from that storm, he hoped to starve the gods and let mankind finally stand on its own. To reach it, he would ban worship, hide himself away, and burn 1,000 souls, and 10,000 years later that same goal would nearly destroy him. Because of that goal, he made a choice that confused everyone around him. He banned every form of worship across his new empire and refused to be called a god, since blind faith and religion open doors in the human mind that the warp can reach through. The novel The Master of Mankind shows him telling his golden guardian Ra that praying to him would be like begging the sun to move, something it would never do, no matter how hard anyone prayed. He did not want to be worshipped. He wanted to break the grip of fear and faith on the human mind and raise a species strong enough to need neither. The man who spent his life killing worship would one day become the most worshipped figure in human history. To do that work, he needed a machine, and that machine became the Golden Throne. When the trailer shows him sitting still on the seat, it can look like a man at rest. In truth, the seat was never built for a king. It is a device made to hold and steer his mind, with the Emperor wired straight into it. Though he never moved, every moment on the seat was spent holding the whole engine together. Because the project needed him without pause, he walked away from his great war of conquest, handed the galaxy to his generals, and shut himself beneath his palace, working without rest as raw power poured into the old roads. Staying on the seat was no longer a choice. It had become the only thing keeping Terra from rotting from the inside. Keeping the machine running came at a terrible price. When the war once forced him off the seat and into the webway himself, his power had to be replaced somehow. So the silent warrior women called the Sisters of Silence, working with the priests of Mars and their half-machine servants, carried out a horrifying act. One by one, they sealed 1,000 psychers into coffins and fed them into the machine so it could run without him. Every one of them was burned away as fuel, spent so their master could move freely for a short time. To this day, mind-touch humans are still fed into it every single day to keep it burning. The machine could run on its own, but it always ran on death. That is the meaning behind the trailer's line about 1,000 souls sacrificed so his may continue to burn. For all his planning, his downfall came from inside his own family. His favorite son, Horus, the greatest of his generals, turned against him, split the galaxy in two, and dragged the war all the way back to Terra. The series The End and the Death covers those final days, and the last duel between father and son holds the strongest hint that the Emperor could one day return. As he fought his rebel son at the height of the siege, the Emperor pulled more and more power out of the storm, and he began to change, rising past anything human and climbing towards the edge of becoming a being of pure and total power. For a few seconds, he stood one step away from becoming a true god. His enemies saw it clearly and understood what it meant. The Dark Priest Erebus told the warrior Abaddon that their foe had become the mightiest thing in the universe and was rising towards the divine, which meant that if he kept that power, the Dark Gods would win forever, because even a god of order only feeds the same cycle that created them. The sorcerer Ahriman, reading the cards of the future, slowly understood the same horror. The prophecies of the siege spoke of a coming ruler of total power they called the Dark King, and that figure was never Horus. The one who could become the Dark King was the Emperor himself, and at the very edge of that power, he turned away from it. Through the eyes of Malkador, his oldest friend and servant, the choice was a trap with no clean way out. Keeping the power offered instant victory, yet it would still hand the Dark Gods their win, since a god of order only feeds them in the end. Truly beating his son meant letting that power go and facing Horus as a mortal man, winning the battle while losing everything that came after. So he did something stranger than simply refusing. He cut a piece out of his own soul. Malkador watched him tear away almost all of his hope, his loyalty, and his kindness, throwing his mercy, his grace, and his love out into the storm. His reasoning was cold and practical, because those gentle feelings would make him hesitate to kill his own child, and across the long centuries ahead, they would drag him into the same ruin that had swallowed Horus. Cutting them away freed him to do the terrible things that rebuilding a broken empire would demand. He did not destroy that lost piece. He let it drift away into the storm. Whether such a fragment could slowly grow over the ages by gathering emotion and belief, the way the Dark Gods once grew from nothing, and whether he might ever take it back to become whole again, are things never fully settled. No one knows where that fragment went, or whether the Emperor can ever be made whole without it. He beat his son as a man, but the victory left his body destroyed. His ruined form was carried to the Golden Machine and placed upon it, and his fate was written not as death, but as a state caught between two worlds. The storyline, the end, and the death lays out the loyal hope plainly. The belief that he still lives, that the seat will hold and slowly heal him, and that once his wounds close, he will rise again and stand beside his people. In that same hour, the enemy made the opposite promise. When Erebus warned the loyal warrior Loken that this was not the end, and that even if it took 1,000 years or 10,000, the Dark Powers would win in time. Both sides walked away certain the story was far from over. The Golden Engine did stranger things than simply hold back the storm. The book, The Master of Mankind, describes non-human parts built into it, still alive with psychic power, and tied to that old plan to rebuild the alien roads. Because of them, the machine is bound to the very paths it was made to protect, and the Emperor is bound to the machine. 10,000 years later, that bond would make him impossible to pull free of the seat. For 10,000 years, the Great Machine held, and the Empire it shielded changed into something its maker would barely recognize. Then, in the present day, the machine began to fail. The series Vaults of Terra follows an agent of the Empire's secret police, the Inquisitor Erasmus Crow, as he pulls apart a plot hidden among the High Lords who rule in the Emperor's name. What he finds should not be possible. A powerful schemer, and Leops Frank, the master of the great psychic beacon that guides ships safely across the galaxy, each tell him the same thing in turn, that the throne is failing. And because the machine does far more than power one seat, if it dies, the Empire will not lose a single world or star system, it'll lose every world at once. Facing that total ruin, the rulers of Mars reached for a cure worse than the sickness. Their high priest, Raskian, led the tech priests into a secret deal with the Drakari, the cruel raiders who haunt the alien roads, through a newly opened gate. To win the parts they needed, they prepared to abandon an entire populated system, 19 billion people across one industrial world, and 8 settlements, pulling away the Empire's protection so that alien hands could reach into the throne's inner workings, all to keep the machine god they call the Omnissiah preserved forever. To save their god, they were ready to hand 19 billion people to the enemy. Worse still, the raiders were building a throne of their own in their hidden city, and the Emperor-linked material this deal handed over was exactly what they needed to finish it. So a desperate repair turned into a danger to the whole species. The trailer's talk of forbidden marvels from a lost age is no exaggeration. The parts buried inside the true throne were never built by human hands, and no tech priest alive knows how to repair them, which is why the discovery shakes even hardened agents. A golden guardian named Navardaran, who lives closest to the machine, admits the breakdown is believable. The storyline Vaults of Terra has him describe the seat as a city in its own right, soaked through with energy from the storm, with some of its workings close to giving out. He admits something stranger as well, that the throne is so flooded with that energy that no one can truly read its state, and what a person sees there depends entirely on who is looking. The machine that holds reality together is running out of time. While Terra scrambles to patch the dying engine, the Emperor's only living son is about to hear something that breaks him. Far across the galaxy fights Rabute Guilliman, one of the Primarchs, these superhuman generals the Master of Mankind created to lead his armies. He had returned from the edge of death long ago to guide humanity through its darkest century. On the battlefield, his dying warrior priest Mathieu spends his last breath on a single claim: the Emperor is waking. That belief, written in the novel Dark Imperium Godblight, ties straight into the wound that recently split the galaxy. That wound is the Great Rift, a vast tear in reality that the Dark Powers ripped open, drowning half the stars in raw psychic energy. By tearing it, the enemy may have made their worst mistake yet, because the flood now soaking the universe would have to lift the greatest psyker who ever lived, along with it. Even so, Mathieu's dying words make the return sound far from certain. He warns that his lord is not ready, and that Guilliman himself must help, since the Emperor has supposedly spent ages putting pieces in place so his son could return first, and then guide him home. Having already come back from death once, the Primarch could drag his maker back the same way. The one man who could bring the Emperor back refuses to believe a word of it. Guilliman insists his father is no god, and that ordinary men have always done the Emperor's work for him. His denial soon runs into things he cannot explain. Strange events keep happening that look exactly like his maker reaching into the living world. At the height of his greatest battle, as the plague god Nurgle's great cauldron of diseases is destroyed and the rotting garden loses its grip, a pure white power flows into Guilliman, remaking his flesh and his armor. Speaking in a voice that is not fully his own, he drives back the traitor Mortarion, who flinches as if he recognizes his lost father, knocked away by power that was never Guilliman's to use. The moment it ends, whatever had filled him simply leaves. Something had entered him and won the fight for him. Their first contact had come even earlier. Remembering an audience at the seat itself, the Primarch recalls his father moving from silence into speech and naming his son, even though no one had heard a single word from the Emperor in thousands of years. A golden guardian named Trajan Valoris stood close enough to watch, yet he heard nothing at all, only Guilliman seeming to speak, as if answering someone. The Lord Commander himself admits the memory changes every time he calls it back. Guilliman saw many things in him at once: a rotting corpse, a king of endless power, a tired old man, and an evil great enough to rival the gods of the storm. He no longer wears a single face. He seems to wear all of them at once. Now the Emperor's own plan begins to turn against him. In this universe, belief helps shape what is real, and belief is the same force that grew the dark gods from nothing. The alien seer Ilian Natase warns Guilliman that the shared faith of the entire human species could turn the Emperor into a true god, whether the man wants it or not. For the first time, the Lord Commander's certainty begins to crack. He still argues that a being with a body, one you can point to on a seat, cannot truly be a god, then admits that the traitor Lorgar was wrong about their maker once, and that the Emperor was no god in the days he knew him. His voice fails on the only word left: the question of what his father has become now. So the very thing the Emperor spent his life trying to stop may be happening anyway. He built the machine to free his people from the storm, and he banned worship so faith could never feed it. Yet his empire now prays to nothing but him, and that endless ocean of belief may be the very thing lifting him towards the godhood he refused. The small wonders keep adding up across the war-torn galaxy. A young girl drives demons back with power she should not have. Soldiers swear the Master of Mankind himself reached into the world to shield them in their darkest moment. The experiment he forbade is now running across the whole galaxy, and it is working. For all these signs, his return may never come. The first reason is that lost piece of his soul. He let his mercy go, and any full return may depend on getting it back. Until that is settled, no one can say whether the thing waiting on the seat is whole, broken, weakened, or something colder than the man who sat down. The second reason is the throne itself, which may be the very thing that traps him for good. Malcador reached a conclusion that turned the whole idea of rescue around. The Emperor is the machine's only hope, not the other way around. Bound to that seat, to that room, and to the non-human parts woven through it, the device leans on his presence to keep reality steady, which gives him every reason to stay exactly where he is. The secret repair plot points the same way, because the hidden project on Terra exists to keep him as he is, forever, so his work never stops. A successful repair would freeze everything in place, and push any waking, and any final death, further away than before. And underneath every confident claim sits one last problem, that the people who live closest to the machine cannot truly read it, since it is so soaked in the storm that what a person sees there depends on who is looking. Everything is sliding into place at the same moment. The machine that holds the galaxy together is breaking. The only repair on offer means bargaining with the cruel raiders of the alien roads. A dying priest swears the greatest psyker who ever lived is stirring, while the storm floods every star. The closest thing to an honest answer is the doubt Gilliman could not finish out loud, that his father was no god in the days he knew him, followed by the word about now that he never managed to say. The son left to guide that waking carries a secret of his own. He was the first to be dragged back from the grave. A Primarch returned to find his father's empire rotting, and chose to rebuild it anyway. And the worship now lifting the Emperor towards godhood never reads the same twice, since every faction sees the man on the throne as one side's salvation and another's deadly lie.